Security expert with the MIT Security Studies Program. Jim, good morning to you again with us out of Boston today.
Good to be with you, Bill.
Does he have a point? I mean, what's he talking about? Sanctions make his country stronger.
Well, he's partly right and partly wrong. I mean, if he had his choice, obviously Iran would not choose to be sanctioned. They don't like economic sanctions, which make things a little more costly, a little more inconvenient. And they don't want the diplomatic sanctions. They don't want to feel isolated from the rest of the international community. But when you go and you sanction a country, this is often how they'll respond, especially if they're, a very proud country. They're going to say, in your face, buddy, we love these. These don't do anything. He is right to say, though, at the end of the day, I think sanctions, we talk about sanctions as if it's the answer. It's all about sanctions. And I think it is unlikely that sanctions by themselves are going to magically change Iran's nuclear policy.
So it can be used as a tool, but you made a remark to our producers earlier today that can be counterproductive. Now, how in the world can this be counterproductive?
Right. Well, people make money off sanctions. That is to say, the smugglers get to charge a high premium for the goods they're going to be bringing in anyway. And so the question is, who gets rich under a smuggling regime? Is it bad guys or is it good guys, or sort of doesn't matter? Well, there's at least one theory that suggests that the Revolutionary Guard are the people who are sort of in charge of the smuggling. So they are making probably a lot of cash.
But the point in that
expanding
is,
their power.
Okay, a couple hundred guards, okay, maybe they make some money on the side. The point is trying to squeeze the pressure on the leadership, and the way you do that, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, is you make the people suffer, and when they get ticked off, well, they're the ones who provide the pressure on the leadership. There are many people who think that's the way to do it when it comes to like gasoline supplies. That's the way you squeeze Iran, Jim. Now, do you agree with that logic?
Well, it might work. Sanctions work less than half the time. They don't have a great track record. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Mostly not, but sometimes. But the problem here, Bill, is that it's a long-term instrument that we're using for a short-term problem. It may be that the people overthrow the government at some point 20 years from now, but the nuclear program will be done by then. And by the way, the reformers are in favor of a civilian nuclear program, too. I think we need to, sanctions are one piece of it. Sort of shaking our hands at them are going to make them defiant.
Okay, at the end of the day, I understand the point you're making there. Thanks for fleshing that out. Now, oftentimes when we talk about Iran, we look at Russia and we look at China as the two keys. You, however, think the French are the key. Why?
Well, Russia and China are important because they can veto any sanctions resolution, but the French have really taken on a sort of a leadership role here, for good or for bad, and they, I think, are true believers. The government officials I talked to are true believers. They think that sanctions will have an impact, and they're sort of the ones pushing the European side of the sanctions. We can't do much on sanctions on the U.S. because, frankly, we already have a bunch of sanctions on them. There's sort of not much left to do, but the Europeans, they do have some room, and the French seem particularly interested in this way to go.
Were you surprised Ahmadinejad was talking this way over the weekend? I would think no, based on previous statements.
No. I mean, this is what he's, all about. And he's going to, and also he has deep political problems at home. He has reformers who are mad at him. He has conservatives in his own party who are very, very angry with him. So he's going to use whatever he can in his public appearances to try to shore up his political standing.
I got it. If you were designing this policy, Jim, and if you were going to implement the sanctions to make them effective, because so far it hasn't been the case, what would you do?
Well, I think I would follow, that old sage wisdom, walk softly and carry a big stick. In other words, I wouldn't go around advertising all the time and saying, you better back down or I will do more, because that's just going to make them defiant. If you're going to use sanctions, turn them up, but don't let them take their effect. Don't give the regime a scapegoat to be able to.
Have we been too public?
I think so, but, there's a political reason for that. I think officials who support sanctions, other than the French, do so for political reasons. So part of that is keeping the group together, the anti-Iran group together, and to do that, you're going to make public statements, which then end up undermining the sanctions.
Every time you come on, you say something interesting. Jim Walsh, thank you. We'll talk to you again out of Boston. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.